I honestly didn't know where to begin with my stops in Krugersdorp. Um, a lot has changed here over a decade since I've been here. So I decided why not stop down the one street that Cecilia would ask me to take her on a weekly basis, if not every 2 weeks. Now, this is Human Street in Krugersdorp. What would happen is before we got to the street, Cecilia would go to the hospital across from her flat. She would then get syringes and gloves, and then we would proceed to come down to the street. Now, back when this was all happening, I honestly and truly didn't know what was going on, other than obviously what I was seeing in front of me. And the reasons that Cecilia gave for what she was doing was obviously just a cover-up lie, and even when she was trying to explain what she was doing, it honestly didn't make sense to me. But she was persistent at doing this. So what would happen is we would park on the side of Human Street. Now, about a decade ago, there was definitely less buildings on the street, and you could not find a car on this road, basically ever. But now there's far more buildings, and there's a lot of cars here, so a lot has changed. But while we would sit in the car, Cecilia would she would strap something around her arm, and then she would proceed to pump her blood. And then, without hesitation, she would put the syringe into her arm, into her vein, and draw blood. Now, just before she had done this, she cut off the finger pieces of the gloves that she got from the pharmacy. From the pharmacy in the hospital, should I say. So, once she had drawn her blood, she then proceeded to put this blood into each of the fingertip pieces. And then, which I found quite utterly disgusting, is she would put these fingertip pieces into her mouth, but with trying to tie a knot at the end. Basically like trying to tie a balloon, if that makes sense. Every time she did this, I squirmed. I was waiting for the waiting for the fingertip piece to burst and for all the blood to pop out into her mouth, basically. And she would just laugh at me every time because I would find this utterly disgusting, as so many people usually would. But this seemed far too normal for her. In fact, she would even often remind me by telling me that, I like the taste of blood. I'm a vampire, remember? She was not just a werewolf, by the way. She was also a vampire, which I'll get to at another time point. But I do remember on the one occasion, one of these fingertip pieces did actually burst in her mouth. I squirmed. I was disgusted. I felt sick. Cecilia's mouth was full of blood. The shocking part was that she was not swayed or moved or disgusted or surprised or anything of the sort. It was almost as if the fingertip piece was filled with water. There was nothing to be alarmed about. But this was blood that had just been drawn from her vein. And what would then happen is she would take at least 5 fingertip pieces, at least, of blood. And once she had sealed them in the fingertip pieces, she'd pop them into her hoodie pocket or a jacket pocket, and then we would go back to her place. Now, even though I was given nonsense reasonings for what she was doing, and it definitely didn't make sense to me, I just left it because Cecilia does whatever Cecilia wants to do. She's not the type of person you could ever persuade or discuss things with to make her see the difference between logic and just something that's plainly stupid. But what I eventually found out is that on every occult high night or occult high day, Cecilia would go into her bathroom, she would pop this fingertip piece of blood into her mouth, and then she would come out casually as if nothing is wrong, and next minute she would proceed to fall on the floor. And she had obviously bitten into this fingertip piece because blood would be every single time pouring out of her mouth. It was basically foolproof. I do not know what happened to the actual fingertip piece itself from the glove when she would pop it. I can only imagine maybe she swallowed it, which is utterly disgusting. But yeah, this street is where she would basically proceed to carry out or plan for her next high day or next fake attempt at the occult trying to take her life, or just faking that her health is at risk and she is busy dying. The amount of times that myself and Ria, Mirinda, and everyone else in her group had seen blood pouring out of Cecilia's mouth, I can't even begin to count, because it was an almost daily thing. I just never knew how she had done it, how she had portrayed this whole scenario to look foolproof, until she started taking me on these trips to the road in Krugersdorp, and then watching her draw her own blood, to then later find out that's what she was really using them for.